So this is available to everyone. There's the website at the top. Today we're going to be looking at the most recent tests from May 2021. When you scroll down, there's different parts of the test. However, today we're going to be looking at Prov Pass 2, quantitative part. That's the math section there. And here's the test. So it gives you a bit of information. It says the proof time. The test should take you roughly 55 minutes. There's 40 questions. So it doesn't give you much time to think. There's the first part should take you 12 minutes. So that's roughly 1 minute per question. So today we might take a little longer because we're going to be explaining the concepts. So I believe that you can answer all these questions. You've been taught these in school, but the hardest part is to think about which concept do you need to think about and what strategy do you think of right away when you see the question. So hopefully this video can help you build some strategies to understand what to think first when you see the question. All right. So let's begin. Which value has x if x over 3 plus 1 over 4 equals 11 over 12? When we have fractions, when we're adding fractions, the key to this is to know that we need to make the denominators the same. And the denominator is in Swedish nämnaren, so we need the bottom numbers to become the same. When we look at this 3 and this 4, and we see this 12 here, it's easy to become all those numbers to make 12. So if I multiply this by 4, that means this number will become 12. But when I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. So I multiply that by 4. This new fraction is now 4x over 3. The fraction next is 1/4. If I multiply this by 3, and I multiply that by 3, we will have 3 over 12. 12. And 11 over 12. Since we all have the same denominators, we can just focus on the top part now. So if we look at 4x plus 3 equals 11. We want to get x alone on one side of the equation, and we can do this by doing reverse order of operations. So once upon a time, if you cover that up, something plus 3 must equal 11. Well, that number underneath there should be 8. So we know that 4x has to equal 8. If we divide both sides by 4, 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. There's our answer. Question 2, it says, which graphs below represent the function of f? And here's our function f. F of x is equal to 3 over 2x minus 2. When you see a graph and you see an equation like this, think about this equation. Y equals kx, or f of x equals kx plus m. M here is the y-intercept. It's where it goes through the y-axis. And this is the y-axis. And k is the slope. It's the slope of the line. It tells us the direction and how steep the line is. So there's two numbers that are involved in the slope. It's the rise divided by the run. If it's a positive slope, that means it's going to go up. If it's a negative slope, that means it's going to go down. And if we run, that means we're moving to the right. So if we just look at this equation, here's our k, x plus m. K is 3 over 2. That means we're going to go up 3, right 2, up 3, right 2. So that means it's positive 3 over 2. So any line that goes down and to the right, for example, A, cannot be the answer. So the last 3 have up and to the right. Another clue we can use is the y-intercept. This is where it goes through the y-axis, negative 2. So when I see this one, I see -1, -2. Good. Now let's change our color here. There's -2. And the slope we said is 3/2. So up 3, right 2. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, right 2, 1, 2. It should be here. So the line doesn't go through there, so it can't be B. This question doesn't go through -2, it goes through -1, so it can't be C. Therefore, our answer is D. Goes through the point -2 at the y-axis, and if you go up 3, 1, 2, 3 steps, and right 2, that's our next point on the line. Question 3, it says, which whole number is closest to square root of 65 plus the square root of 35? When you see the square root symbol, you should think about your perfect square numbers. And these are our perfect square numbers, which is 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared, or 4 to the power 2 is 16. And all I'm doing is 4 times 4. This is the same as 4 to the power of 2. So it's good to know these numbers here are our perfect square numbers. All right, the list can continue. So when we look at 65, I know that that's not a perfect square number. So if I were to continue this pattern, I know that 8 to the power of 2 is 64, and that's awfully close to the square root of 65. So I know this is roughly the square root of 64. And I know square root of 64 is equal to 8. So this is 8. The square root of 35 is not 35 is not a perfect square number. So I know that 6 to the power of 2 is 36. And I know that the square root of 36 is equal to 6. So this is close to 6. Now we have a question, 8 plus 6, and that equals 14. The next one. It says that we need to choose the alternative that answers the question 3/5 divided by 2 minus 11 over 10. Let's solve this bottom part first. We have 2 minus 11 over 10. This goes back to the question where we subtracted and added fractions. If we make 2 as a fraction, we can write 2 as a fraction as 2 over 1. If we want to have the same denominators, that means we need to multiply this by 10, multiply this by 10. So now we have 20 over 10 minus 11 over 10. 20 minus 11 is 9 over 10. And the 10 stay the same. Now we have our equation is this, 3 over 5 divided by 9/10. Or you can write this as 3 over 5 divided by 9 over 10. When we divide fractions, there's a trick we can do. What we can do is we can flip this fraction upside down and change this to multiply. What I mean by this is we can change this to multiply, and then we have 10 over 9. Three over 5 times 10 over 9. 3 times 10 is 30. 5 times 9 is 45. And now if I divide this by, say, a number, say I divide it by 5, for example, I know I can simplify, and when in Swedish we say that's förkortning. So 30 divided by 5, that's the same as 6 over 45 divided by 9 is 9. 6 over 9. So Usually the answers are in simplest form. So 6 over 9 it's close to simplest form, but it's not quite simplest form. You know it's in the simplest form. It's when you cannot divide the top and the bottom numbers by anything else. When we look at 6 and 9, we know that they have factors of 3. So if we divide this, we get 2 over 3, which is the answer D. How big is the angle X in this triangle? Some important things to know is how much the angles inside of a triangle add up to. So if we have a triangle, for example, these angles here, they need to add up X, Y, Z, they need to add up to 180 degrees. And also, if we have a flat line, if you start here and you go all the way over here, that is 180 degrees. So it's good to know. These are supplementary angles. Now let's look at, for example, let's focus on this triangle here. Let's try to find this angle W. We'll call it W. So if we know that all of them together have to equal 180, well, if we have two of them, we can find the third. 20 plus 130 is 150. So that means we can take the difference of 180 minus 150 to find W. And we know that's going to be 30 degrees. So W is 30 degrees. Now let's focus on this triangle here. Let's call this angle Z. Zeta. Same thing applies. 70 plus 60 equals 130. And to find angle Z, we can take the difference between 180 minus 130, Z degrees, and that's going to be 50 degrees. So if this is 50 degrees, and we said that this rule now, to go from here all the way here is 180. We have two of the angles. So if we add those together, 30 plus 50, that's going to be equal to 80 degrees. And to find X, we can take the difference between 180 minus 80 degrees. Will give us X. And well, that's 100 degrees. Therefore, our answer is C. Question 6, it says, which of the following alternatives correspond with the expression x squared plus x minus 12? So you can just start with A, and there's a strategy you can use called FOIL. F means first, O is outer, I is inner, L is last. So first, you can multiply the first terms, x times x, which is x squared. Then you can go outer, x times negative 4 is negative 4x. Then you can go inner, negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And you can go last. Negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. And when you simplify that, you get x squared minus, if you have negative 4x minus 3x, it's going to be negative 7x plus 12. And that's not the answer that corresponds to that. So it can't be this one. Now try the next one. Same thing. First, x times x, x squared. Then you go outer, x times positive 4 is 4x. Inner, negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And then you go last. Negative 3 times positive 4, negative 12. When you simplify it, you have positive 4x minus 3x. It's going to give you 1x. So you have x squared plus 1x minus 12, which is the same as this one. So B is our answer. Number 7, it says that x has to be greater than 0. This means greater. So x can be 1, 2, 100, 1 million. It could be anything like that. What is x to the power of 2 to the power of 5 over 7? It's good to know this rule. When we have a power to a power, this is the same as x to the a times b. You multiply these two. Multiply. So if we have x squared to the power of 5 over 7, we're going to multiply these. So x to the power of 2 times 5 over 7, which is the same as 2 over 1. And that's the same as x to the power of 10 over 7. And the answer is B. It says, which of the is the biggest prime number that is less than 100? A prime number is, this is a prime number, primtal, is a number that only has two factors. So factors are numbers that multiply together to get you an answer. So for example, 11 is a prime number because you can only divide it by 11 in itself. 11 and 1, sorry. 3 is a prime number because you can only divide it by 3 and 1. 15 is not a prime number because you can divide it by 15 and 1, but also you can divide it by 5 and 3. So it has 4 factors. Prime numbers only have 2 factors. So it says the largest prime number. So let's start with the biggest number here, 99. Well, you know that 99 times 1 works, but also 9 times 11. Since there's more than 2 factors, this can't be a prime number. You can stop there. Now let's try the next biggest number, 97. So if now you're trying to figure out, can I divide 97 by something? Well, I know that 96 divided by 2 is 48. Okay? So really close. So I know it's not divisible by 2. And also this 7 here makes it so that it's an odd number. And 7 actually is a prime number as well. I can't think of any factors off the top of my head other than 97 times 1. So I'm going to say the answer is C. Question 9. It says the line goes through the line that's given y equals negative 2x plus 2 and y equals 2x plus 4 share the same point. Which x coordinate has this point? So you need to find the x coordinate. So on a graph, these two lines cross at exactly 1 point on the graph. We need to find the x coordinate of that point. The simplest way to do this is to solve by using algebra. Looking at this, you have the letter y, the letter y. They're both equal to y. So we can say that we can let y1 equal y2. We'll say the first line is y1, the second line is y2. So then I'm just going to replace negative 2x plus 2 is equal to 2x plus 4. And now we're going to solve for x. Let's get x onto one side of the equation. For example, I can add 2x. So if I add 2x here, that means that 2x plus negative 2x is 0x. So now I have 2x plus 2x. It's going to give me 4x. Since I'm putting x on one side, I can move this onto this side. If I subtract 4 and I subtract 4, 4 minus 4 is 0. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Here's our simplified equation now. To get x by itself, I need to divide it by 4. And this is the same as negative 2 over 4 or negative 1 over 2 is equal to x in simplified form. There's our answer, C. Number 10, it says there exist two squares, a red square so a square has all 4 even sides. And we'll draw our yellow square here. Here's our yellow square. So these lines just mean every side is the same. It says that the sides in the yellow square are 6 centimeters longer than the sides of the red square. So if we call this sides of the red square x, well, that means the sides of the yellow square are going to be x plus 6, since there's 6 more than the sides of the red square. All right. We use x to represent a number we don't know yet. Since it's comparing itself to the red square, then we'll call the sides of the red square x. And it also tells us that the area of the yellow square is 48 centimeters squared larger than the area of the red square. So I'll just stay to the same color. So the area of a square is just length times width, or the base times the height. So I'll just say area of the square. The lengths are x plus 6 times x plus 6. So we can say x plus 6 to the power of 2. The area of this square is length times width, x times x, which is just x squared. All right. The area of the yellow square is 48 centimeters bigger than the red. The area of the red is x squared. So the area of the yellow is x squared plus 48, since it's 48 centimeters squared larger. Now we need to solve x. So let's simplify the right side. When we have this, we do x to the power of 2 is x squared. 6 to the power of 2 is 36. And then you do x times 6, which is 6x, times 2 is 12x. We have x squared on both sides, so if I minus x squared here, minus x squared here, now they're gone. Let's put the numbers onto the left side. So if I minus 36, 48 minus 36 is 12. Now we have 12x is equal to 12, so that's gone. And if we divide both sides by 12, we know that 12 divided by 12 is 1. So now we know the value of x. X is equal to 1. It says, how big is the area of the red square? Well, if these are 1, we just replace 1 for x. So 1 to the power of 2, that's just 1 times 1, which is just 1. So our answer is 1 centimeter squared, which is A. All right, number 11. It says that the mean or the average weight of 4 boxes. Let's say we have 4 boxes. The average of the 4 boxes is 5.5 kilos. We'll say that's the mean. That's the same as the average. And the median value is the middle value is 5 kilograms. We need to know what is the lowest possible weight of the heaviest box. Uh-huh. All right, so if we have 4 boxes. The average weight is 5.5. That means if we do, if we have the total weight of all the boxes divided by 4, that's going to be equal to the median, or sorry, the average, 5.5, right? And if we want just to know the total weight, if we multiply both sides by 4 times by 4, then our answer we'll get is 22. I'll show that over here. So you do 5 times 5.5, or 4 times 5.5. 4 times 5 is 20. Put 2 here. 4 times 5 is 20 plus 2 is 22. And there's one number after the decimal, so you put the decimal there. So the total weight of all the boxes is 22, right? Okay, so now we need to determine scenarios. So if we looked at the heaviest box, the lowest possible value for the heaviest box. So let's look at 5.5. So pretend this is 5.5. Oh, wait, let's go back a step. The median, we need to remember the median is 5. And when we find the median, we usually take the middle value. However, there's no middle value here since there's an even number. So we need to add the 2 boxes up to find the middle value, and then we divide it by 2. Since the median is 5, this means that the average of these boxes is 5 when it's divided by 2. So we know that 5 times 2 will be 10. So the weight of these boxes here has to be 10. Okay? So this box, this section of our picture equals 10 kilograms. So now let's take a look at if the big box, we'll say this is the heaviest box. So for example, if this is 5.5, that means that the total weight must be 22. So if we're looking for this box here, 10 plus 5.5 is going to be 15.5. And if we want to find the question mark, well, to find this, we can do what's 22 minus 15.5. If we put a decimal here, we got 6.5. So if the biggest box is 5.5, that means the smallest box must be 6.5. So that doesn't work. So we can actually say right away that it's not A. If we jump ahead to if the next one is 6, so if the heaviest box is 6, well, 10 plus 6 is 16. This one has to be 6 as well if it equals 22. Therefore, it doesn't make it the heaviest box. Because we don't know the size of the middle ones. So we can say that, let me look at my translate again actually. The average weight of the boxes is 5.5 kilograms and the median weight is 5. What is the lowest possible weight for the heaviest box? Well, I mean, this question, you could say yes. We know that the box could be 6.5, but also if the heaviest box is 5, if the heaviest box is 6, that means that this box has to be 6, and inside has to be the total of 10. So therefore, I would say the answer is B, 6. It could be 6. Good. All right. It says a car drives at a speed of X meters per second. What is the alternative for the speed in kilometers an hour? So when we do this, we need to know, we have to go from seconds to eventually hours. So let's go seconds to minutes. We know there's 60 seconds in a minute. So if we times by 60, that means we need to times this by 60. So we have 60 meters per minute. And now if we go to hours, there's 60 minutes in an hour. So we times by 60 as well. If we times this number by 60, 60 times 60 is 3,600 meters per hour. When we convert meters to kilometers, we know that there's 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. So 3,600 meters, when we divide this, it's going to be divided by 3.6. So that means we'll have 3.6 kilometers per hour. All right. When we look over here, we have no answer that says 3.6. All right. But we know that this can't be an answer because that's 1 over 6. Can't be 9x. Can't be 36x, even though that looks pretty close. So it has to be C. And to make sure we can do, what is 18 divided by 5? Well, 5 goes into 18 3 times with 3 remaining. 5 goes into 30 6 times. Yep, that works. 3.6. So our answer is C. That's it for the first section. I know we were a bit over time, but I hope this video was helpful. And stay tuned for the next video on the next part of this test. So it's recommended. Questions 13 to 22, we finished those in 10 minutes. Not much time to do that, so again, we'll take our time answering these. So let's go back down to 13. All right, here we go. Question 13 says X is, let's get my pen out. Green. X is greater than negative 7. And this one says Y is greater than 7. So if you visualize that, think of a number line. Pretend here we have negative 7, negative 6, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3. So visualizing negative numbers can be a bit tricky sometimes. So it's good to draw a number line. All right. Oops. Something like that. That means X has to be greater than negative 7. And if X is greater than negative 7, then if I draw this imaginary line here, X must be any number that way. It could be negative 6, could be negative 5, could be negative 4, and any number past that point. If we look at Y, well, Y has to be any number greater than this. So Y can be any number after 7. Could be 8, for example. But again, X could also be 8 since it's after negative 7. So we have some scenarios here, right? X and Y technically could equal the same answer. They could both equal 8 because X could equal 8 and Y could equal 8 since they're both true for their conditions. So therefore, let's look at our options. It says that option 1 is bigger than option 2. Well, yeah, you could say that. What if x was 9 and y was 8? Well, yeah, x is larger than -7, y is larger than 7, so that statement holds true. We'll look at number 2. 2 is bigger than 1. Well, the reverse could work for the other. If y was equal to 9, x could be equal to 8. So therefore, that means that statement's true. It says that 1 and 2 are the same. Well, we said that at the start. X and y could both equal 8. They could both equal the same number. So therefore, the information is not enough. The information is in too general, so say answer D. Question 14. It says that a quantity 1 is 1 meter cubed and quantity 2 is 999 decimeter cubed. So we need to compare the two. When you see that they're in different units, the key is to make them so that they're in the same measurement. When I see this little number here, a 3, that I think of volume of a 3D shape right away. And when I think of cubed, I think of a cube. So if I draw a cube here, and this cube has a volume equal to 1 meter cubed. And I know the volume of a cube, since all the sides are the same, is if this is the length times the width times the height. If each of them is 1, well, 1 times 1 times 1, that's going to be 1 meter cubed. So therefore, each side must be 1 meter. All right? So what if we measured this cube with decimeters? Now we need to know what is 1 meter in decimeter. Well, there's a thing you can remember when you're converting between units. K is king. Henry doesn't usually drink chocolate milk. K is kilo, say kilometers. H is hecta. D is deca. We don't really use that one very much in Sweden, though. U, that's our unit. We're measuring in meters. Decimeters, centimeters, millimeters. We're going from meters to decimeters. When we go from one unit to the next, we can times by 10. So that means that 1 meter is actually going to equal 10 decimeter. So for our cube up here, instead of 1 meter, we can write as 10 decimeter. So these are actually the same box, even though they don't look the same. They have the same measurement. 10 decimeters is the same as 1 meter. Same thing goes here. To find the volume of this box, 10 times 10 times 10, or 10 to the power 3, that's going to be 1,000 decimeter cubed. So this is the same as 1,000 decimeter cubed. Well, now it's pretty obvious that quantity 1 is larger than quantity 2. So the answer is A. All right, so this question here, I had to Google Translate because my Swedish is not the best so far. It says, at a workplace, there are 80 employees, of which 60 work in the workshop and 20 work at the office. All right. 30 of the employees cycle to work. Okay. Quantity 1, the number of employees who both work in the workshop and cycle to work. So quantity 1 means that the number of people who both work in the workshop, out of these 60 people, we need to find out how many people biked that work in the workshop. However, it doesn't really tell you this information. It just says that 30 people take the bike. So we know that there's 30 people that cycle to work, right? But we don't know how many people work in the workshop that cycle to work. So maybe there's one person that cycles to work that works in the workshop. Maybe there's 30 people that maybe everyone who works in the workshop cycles to work. We don't know that. So it seems a bit, the information doesn't seem like it tells us too much. And the quantity too is 20. So this here, we just said that maybe it's one person that cycles and works in the workshop. But what if it was all 30 people who cycled? Could be in the workshop. We don't know that. So I would say that the information is not enough. All right, so my answer is D. Question 16, it says that the rectangle and the triangle have the same omkrets. And omkrets is the perimeter in Swedish. Or omkrets Swedish, perimeter English. The perimeter of this rectangle, we'll say the omkrets of the rectangle. Well, it's when you add up all the side lengths. So we have 2x plus 20. The omkrets of this triangle is 3x. All right. It says that they both have the same omkrets. So, like we did in an earlier question, we can let the omkrets of the rectangle equal the omkrets of the triangle. So we're going to let 2x plus 20 equal 3x. Now our job is to get x alone on one side. So I have 3x here, it's all alone. So let's bring 2x over there. Let's going to subtract 2x from both sides. 2x minus 2x is 0. So we have 20 is equal to 1x. Well, we know what x is equal to now. X is equal to 20. So therefore, it's pretty clear now x is bigger than 15. So we can say 1 is bigger than 2. Answer's A. Question 17. It says that x is greater than 0. So x could be equal to 1, for example. Since that statement's true. It says a fourth of a fifth of x. So a fourth of a fifth of x. When we see the word of, think multiply right away. I'll say multiply. Or gånger in Swedish. So when we multiply a fourth times a fifth of x, and we're going to say x is 1. So times 1. Well, 1 times 1 times 1, since 1 over 1 is the same as 1, 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 5 times 1 is 20. Quantity 2, it says a fifth of a fourth. A fifth of a fourth of, we said x is 1. These two they look awfully similar because if you found a fifth of a fourth, then that's the same as finding a fourth of a fifth. It's the same as saying 3 times 2 is 6, but 2 times 3 is 6. So therefore, we're going to say they are both the same. Because if x is any number, you're taking a fifth of a fourth of that. That's the same as timesing by a fourth of a fifth. So we're saying they're the same. C. Question 18. It says, our function of x, f of x, is equal to 3 times 2 to the power of x. Quantity 1, it's our function evaluated at x equals 2 times 4. So let's find that out. So first of all, let's find out what f of 2 is. F at 2 is, we just replace x for 2. So that's 3 times 4, which is 12. And remember, we're timesing it by 4. So 4 times f at 2 means we're timesing 12 by 4. And that's going to be 48. So quantity 1 is 48. Quantity 2, if we look at f at 4, we replace x for 4. 3 times 2 to the power of 4. 2 to the power of 4 is the same as 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Times 2 is 8. Times 2 is 16. So we need to find what's 3 times 16. Well, that actually means x is equal, f of 4 is also equal to 48. So in this case, they actually are both the same. So we say C is our answer. All right, number 19. X is greater than 0. Well, then x could equal 1. Let's always use 1 because it's easy to calculate. If x is 1, then we'll solve for this equation. So replace x with 1. 1 plus 1 minus 1 over 1. 1 over 2 minus 1 over 1. This is the same as, if we want to make the same bottoms, if we times this by 2, times this by 2, then that's the same as 1 over 2 minus 2 over 2, which is negative 1 over 2, or 0.5, it's negative. So this is negative 1 over 2. Let's replace x in the second equation with 1. So we have 1 over 1 minus 1 over 2. This is the same as 1 over 1 minus 1 over 2 is the same as 1 minus 0.5, for example, which is 0.5, or 1 over 2. And since this number is positive, we can say that quantity 2 is bigger. So the answer is B. So whenever you get a question like this, x is greater than 0, just substitute a value. Choose an easy number. 1 is good. If you like to work with 2, put 2 there. Okay? Let's move on here. So quantity 1, it says the probability of choosing a blue color out of a bag of balls that have 5 blue and 15 white. Well, the probability of pulling a blue, you have 5 blue out of a total of 5 plus 15 is 20 balls. So the total is 20. So the probability, that's the same as 1/4 or 0.25 or 25%. Not bad. The second probability, it says the probability of choosing a red colored out of a bag that has 4 red and 14 white. Well, let's just write it again. So 4 red out of a possible 4 plus 14 is 18 total. Now we need to find out what percentage this is as well. If I simplify this, if I have 4 over 18, I can divide this by 2. I can divide this by 2. So that's 2 over 9. And if I use division, 2 over 9. How many times does 9 fit into 2? Well, it's too large, so it doesn't fit. We're going to have to move over. So now we have 9 into 20 twice. 9 times 2 is 18, so we have 20 minus 18. We have 2 remaining. Put a 0 there. 9 goes into 20, again twice. 2 remaining. So it's going to be continue on forever. So it's roughly 22%, give or take. Well, now it's clear that the better percentage is pulling a blue ball. So quantity 1 has a better probability. So we'll say that our answer is 1 is bigger than 2. So our answer is A. Question 21, it says the area of the shaded surface or spot is quantity 1, and quantity 2 is 38 centimeters squared. So you should notify up here that if you were to draw an imaginary line here, now you have a square. And the area of this square, if we call this area of 1, the area of 1 is going to be x times x. Since this is a square, it's going to be x squared. And if you try to find how long this is here, well, if this is x, and this from here to here is 2x, well, halfway, this is going to be x. So to find the area of number 2, so the area of 2, it's a triangle. So it's the base times the height divided by 2. The base is x, the height is x, x times x divided by 2. So x squared over 2. So the area of the shaded is going to be equal to this plus this. So we have x squared plus x squared over 2. That's the same as, if this is 1x squared over 1. To make these the same denominator, we can multiply this by 2, multiply this by 2. That's the same as 2x squared over 2 plus 1x squared over 2. So our final answer is 3x squared over 2, or 3 over 2x squared. Now we need to know, how the heck do we find x? It's pretty clear. When we see a right triangle has one 90-degree angle. We should think right away Pythagorean theorem. And this is the relationship between the three sides of a right triangle. We have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. There's a funny side of this right triangle. It's across from the 90-degree angle. That's called the hypotenuse. It's always the longest side of the triangle. And in this case, our C, that's our side C. Well, that's 2x. It doesn't matter which side is A and which side is B. Let's just call this A, call this B. So let's replace the values now. So instead of A, I'm going to write 6 to the power of 2 plus B, 8 to the power of 2 plus, and we know C is 2x all to the power of 2. 6 squared, 36. 8 squared, 64. 2 to the power of 2 is 4. X to the power of 2 is x squared. 36 plus 64 is 100. If we divide both sides by 4, that means 25 is equal to x squared. The opposite of squaring something is taking the square root. So the square root of 25 is 5. The square root of x squared is x. So we know the value of x now is 5. So we're going to replace x with 5 here. So if we do that, what's 3 times 5 to the power of 2 divided by 2? 5 to the power of 2 is 25. What's 3 times 25 divided by 2? 3 times 25 will give us 75. And what's 75 over 2? That's going to be 37.5. And in this case, centimeters. So we'll say that the area of this shape is 37.5 centimeters squared. So it's pretty clear that 38 is bigger than 37.5. So we'll say 2 is bigger than 1. There's our answer, B. And 22. X squared times y to the power of 3 is greater than 0, but x times y is less than 0. We need to know, what is the quantity of x and y. So it's important to know, let's look at this one first. If x is a positive number, if x is positive, and we'll say that y is a negative number, when we times a positive and a negative number, we always get a negative number. And that statement holds true. x times y is less than 0, it's probably a negative number. So therefore, x times y is a negative number. But if x was negative and you multiply it by y, which is a positive number, you'll get a negative as well. So these two statements are where we're going to base our thinking about. Now let's look at option 2, or the first option. X squared times y cubed is greater than 0. Let's look at the first scenario. Scenario 1, if x is positive. If x is positive, I'll say x is positive, then when you square it, it's going to be a positive number. Okay? If we said that y is negative, then y to the power of 3 will be negative. Okay? Because if y is negative, if we have a negative times a negative times a negative, negative times a negative will give us a positive, but a positive times a negative will give us a negative. So that's why our answer will be negative. So then if x squared times y, if we multiply these two, a positive times a negative, well, that means the answer is going to be negative. And in this here, it says that this must be bigger than 0. It must be positive. So that means that y, this value of y cannot be negative, because then it makes the whole thing negative. So y cannot be negative. Y has to be a positive number. Right? However, x can be positive, like we said here. Or if we look at another option, if x was a negative number, okay, then x squared, well, that's going to be a positive number, because a negative times the negative number will give us a positive. And if y was positive, it doesn't matter. Then y cubed is always going to be positive, because it's a positive number times a positive number times a positive number. Those are positives. That's always going to be a positive number. So then when you multiply a positive times a positive, you always get a positive, which is true for this statement, because it says it has to be greater than 0. So that means x can be positive or negative, right? But y has to be positive. So it says that option 1 is bigger than option 2. Well, yeah, that could happen if one was a positive, if x was negative, right? The option 2, it says 2 is bigger than 1. Yeah, it could be. And then it says option 3, they're the same. Yeah, they could be. They could be both positive numbers, maybe positive 2. And then it says the information is not enough. I think that's not enough, because it's not very clear like what the numbers can be. So since x could be a positive or a negative number, that's why we're going to say it's not enough information. So our answer is D. All right, let's just take a look. Let's see, 22. So there we have it. We're at question 22 now. So that's the end of this video. Stay tuned for the next part of the test. Hey everybody, let's jump back in here. We're going to go to the next section, is questions 23 to 18. And I believe this is the third part of the test. 23 to 18, there's 6 questions, and they should take us roughly 10 minutes. So let's give it a try. So question 23, I had to do some Google translating. It says 3 friends, Albert, Felix, Oscar, are all different sizes. How tall is Albert? So in these questions, they give us 2 hints, and after we need to decide, was it enough information just given one of them, or both of them, or maybe none of them? So it says Oscar is 5 centimeters longer than Felix. Felix is 13 centimeters shorter than Albert. So if we look at that first piece of information, pretend we have Felix Yikes. Felix, we have Oscar, and we have Albert. So it's telling me Oscar's 5 centimeters longer than Felix, but Felix is shorter by 13 centimeters than Albert. Since it's Oscar's height is dependent on Felix's height, and then Felix's height is dependent on how tall Albert is, we're going to start with Albert. We'll say that Albert is X centimeters tall. If Albert is X centimeters tall, it says Felix is 13 centimeters shorter than shorter than Albert. So that means Felix is going to be 13 centimeters shorter than Albert, X minus 13. That means Oscar is 5 centimeters longer than Felix. So Oscar is going to be Felix's height plus 5. If we simplify that, negative 13 plus 5, that's negative 8. So X minus 8. So these are the expressions we get for Felix, Oscar, and Albert. All right. So we now know these expressions, but I don't think this is enough information. It doesn't tell us really anything. Now let's look at option 2. It says the average length of the friend's height is 181, but both Oscar and Felix are shorter than 181. Oops. So this piece of information I think is really important. The average height of the friends is 181. Remember, the average is we take the total divided by the number of people. So the number of people here is 3. The average, this is 181. So we need to find what is the total. And if this is true, the total is going to be when we add up Oscar's height plus Albert's height plus Felix's height. So the total is going to be, what's 181 times 3? Because when we multiply this by 3, we can multiply this by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So the total is going to be the product of 3 times 181. So 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 8 is 24. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 is 5. So their total heights must add up to 543. Their total can be added up if we do 543 equals Felix's height. That's Felix. Plus Oscar's height. Oscar. Plus Albert's height. Right? Now let's simplify the right side of this equation. We have 1x, 2x, 3x. We have negative 13 minus 8 is negative 21. So we have 543 is equal to this. If we add 21 to both sides to get x alone, we can add 21. That's 4, 6. 564 is equal to 3x. If we divide both sides by 3, 564 divided by 3. 3 goes into 5 once, 2 remaining. 3 goes into 26 8 times. 8 times 3 is 24, so 2 remaining. 3 goes into 24 8 times. So 564 divided by 3 will give us 188. So now we know the value of x. And remember, the value of x was Albert's height. Albert is 188 centimeters tall. So I believe that without the second hint, we were not able to find Albert's height. So I think both are important. So C is my answer. Question 24. It says, which has the value of x? 4% of x is equal to 15% of 400. So 4%, if we did this, 4%, so 4 over 100. Of, remember, is multiply. So 4% of x is equal to 15%, 15 over 100, of 400. So now let's solve for x. This is going to be 0.04x, because this is 0.04. We can do cross reduction. We have 400 here, 100 here. 400 divided by 100 is just 4. So we have 15 times 4, which is 60. We divide both sides by 0.04. All right. This is the same as 60 divided by 4 over 100. We could have simplified that earlier. 4 over 100. If we simplify that, if we divide this by 4, divide this by 4, that's the same as 1 over 25. When we divide fractions, we flip the second fraction in times. So we have 60 times 25 over 1. And 60 times 25, let's see. 0 times 5 is 0. 6 times 5 is 30. I'm going to move over. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 6 is 12. When I add these up, I get 1,500. So the value of x is 1,500. So you could solve the value of x by just having the first clue. If we look at the second clue, I'll write the second clue in a different color. So second clue here, if we have 3x plus 5y is equal to 4,000, it tells us what the value of y is. So if I substitute 5 times negative 100 is equal to 4,000. That's 3x minus 500 is equal to 4,000. If I add 500 to both sides, I get 3x is equal to 4,500. If I divide both sides by 3, you get 1,500. So we actually get the same answer. But you don't need each other. So they're both correct, but you don't need one or the other. So I would say whatever the option is for both are correct, but independent of each other. So I think the answer would be D. Good. Let's double check that actually. I need to Google Translate this. The word at the bottom, or option D. Take a look. It's not through both of them. Just gonna look on the Google Translate here. No statements. Yeah, that can't be true. We need one of the statements, but both of them are independent. They don't rely on each other. So yeah, answer's D. All right, this one I needed to Google Translate. It says on a table it lays 5 books in a row. A biology book, an English book, a physics book, a chemistry book, and a math book. The books are numbered 1 to 5 from left to right. Says which number has the math book have? Option 1, it says the chemistry book lies, I'll read it from the English here. The chemistry book is both next to the math book and the physics book. The chemistry book has number 2. the mathematics book does not have number 3. So that means the mathematics book could have number 1, right? So the books are numbered 1 to 5 from left to right. Well, if you read the first part, it says the books are numbered 1 to 5, right? So if you have, here's a book, here's a book, here's a book. There's 5 books, right? It says that they're in order already. The biology book, there's biology, English, physics, chemistry, math. All right? And it says they're ordered numbers 1 to 5 from left to right. All right? So that could be true. 5, the math book could be the 5th book, right? Whoops. Saying that the math could be the 5th book. But it doesn't say that, though. It just says that the books are laid in order. So it could very well be the opposite. It could be that the math book is first, and the second is the chemistry, and the third is the physics. So this could be the math book. This could be the chemistry, the physics, the English, and the biology. And then this would be the 5th, this would be the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd, the 1st. So we actually have a 50-50 chance if you weren't to read these, you have a 50-50 chance. The math book can either be the 5th book or it can be the 1st book because they're in order, they say. All right? But it says which number has the math book. Option 1 says the chemistry book lies between the math and the physics. Okay? The chemistry book has the number 2. Well, that means that the math book is number 1. Right? So this one gives us a clear understanding. It says in the second option, the English book is next to the biology book. The biology book is next to the physics book. That is pointless. We don't need this one. So option 1 is our good choice here. Okay. A is our answer. Which value has X, Y, Z? When you don't see anything between them, this is the same as X times Y times Z. X times Y is equal to 1. All right. Y times Z is equal to 1. So if X times Y times Z is equal to 1, that means that X must be 1, Y must be 1, Z must be 1. So you actually need both information, because if you didn't have this, then you don't know what Z is. This has to be 1 times 1. Z is unknown here until you have option 2. So I think C is our answer. We need both of them together. Vice versa. If you have Y and Z, these have to be 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. But if we didn't have this first option, we don't know what X is. X could be like 10, or it could be any other number. But since it's telling us that X times Y is 1, X has to be 1 as well, since Y was 1. So C is our answer. Number 27. So I had to Google Translate this one as well. It says Ella and Sophie and Ilva live on separate floors in a house. Who lives on which floor? It says that Ilva lives at least 1 floor below Sophie. So if we have a house, must live here, or she must live here. If she lives on the first floor, then Sophie can live on the top floor or the second floor. But if she lives on the second floor, then Sophie's on the top floor. Okay? Sophie lives at least 1 floor above Ella. Sophie lives on the top. It's clear. But we don't know where Ella lives, and where Eva lives. These could be the options. So I don't think we can answer this question fully with example 1, condition 1. And then it says condition 2, Ella's and Ilva's floors are adjacent to each other, which means they're directly next to each other. Ella's and Ilva's. And Sophie lives on the top floor. Well, that's pretty obvious then. Ella and Ilva are adjacent to each other. But it's the same thing. We don't know who lives above who. It just says that they're next to each other. But we clearly said that in the first example, right? This one and this one have to be Ella or Ilva, whereas the top floor must be Sophie. So actually, we don't know for sure who lives on the second and the bottom floor. So therefore, I would say none of them give enough information. E. That's my answer. And 28, it says, let me read it from the Swedish to English here. Anton and Bert start at the same time and they run towards each other along the same straight line, each at its own constant speed. When they start, they are 3 kilometers away from each other. How far does Bert run when they meet? All right. So we know that these two guys, Anton and Bert, are 3 kilometers away from each other. In clue number 1, it says that Bert runs 50% faster. So we do know that Bert is running faster than Anton, but we don't know how much faster. We don't know if it's, we know how much actually, it's 50%, but we don't know if Anton's running 100 kilometers an hour, if he's running 2 kilometers an hour. We're not really sure. So whatever Anton's speed is, X kilometers per hour, well, Bert's going to be running 50% more, so 1.5x kilometers per hour. In option 2, it says Anton's speed is 8 kilometers an hour, and they're going to meet after 9 minutes. All right, we can work with that. So if we look at Anton's speed, 8 kilometers per hour, they're going to meet after 9 minutes. So if we convert this to minutes, well, that means we're going to divide it by 60 to get to minutes. And if we divide 8 by 60, that means we're going to have 8 over 60 kilometers. And we know that they're going to meet in 9 minutes. So at 9 minutes, well, we know how much he runs per minute. 8 over 60 kilometers per minute. So 9 minutes, we can times it by 9. So for this speed, we can multiply it by 9 as well. So now we have 8 times 9 divided by 60 kilometers in 9 minutes. 8 times 9 is 72. So we have 72 over 60 kilometers in 9 minutes. Well, let's do the math. What's 72 divided by 60? Let's try to simplify this first. I know that I can divide this by 12, and I can divide this by 12. So when we do that, our new fraction we get is 60 divided by 12 is 5. That means 72 divided by 6. Sorry, 72 divided by 12 is 6. 6 over 5 is the same as 1.2. So we know that Anton's speed is 1.2 kilometers an hour. Okay. Anton's speed is given here. Bert's speed, well, first of all, if we know that after 9 minutes, this is not an hour, this is in 9 minutes. So after 9 minutes, Anton's going to reach almost halfway. It's going to be at 1.2 kilometers. This is when they're going to meet. So that means after 1.2 kilometers, well, Bert has to run the difference. And what is the difference between 1.2 and 3? Well, that's 1.8. So Bert actually ran 1.8 kilometers in 9 minutes. And if you look at 1.2 and 1.8, 1.8 is 50% larger than 1.2 because if we found what's 50% of 1.2, that's the same as dividing 1.2 divided by 2. We know that 1.2 divided by 2 is 0.6. And if we added this represents 50% of Anton's speed. And here it says Bert runs 50% faster than Anton. Well, if we add that on to Anton's speed, if we did 1.2 plus 0.6, well, that's going to give us 1.8 kilometers. That's his speed, which we got here. So actually, you don't necessarily need option 1, do you? You could have found this all out before knowing option 1. Because even if you didn't know that Bert runs 50% faster than Anton, well, you could find out that Anton traveled 1.2 kilometers in 9 minutes, and it says they have met here. Well, that means that in that same time, Bert has traveled the remainder of that trip, which is 3 minus 1.2, which is 1.8 kilometers. So therefore, that's his speed within the same time, 1.8 kilometers per 9 minutes. So I think that, okay, option 1 it's helpful, but you could solve this question without it by just using option 2. So I think that our answer is going to be B. Option 2 gives us our correct answer. So that's it today. This finishes our last part of this test. I believe there's one more section to go, but this is questions 23 to 28 complete.